Tomorrow morning begins like any other day. Cars move through the streets. People walk to work. Planes cross the sky. Everything feels completely normal. But in less than a second, everything changes. The Earth has stopped spinning. But here is the problem. You don't stop. The cars don't stop. The oceans don't stop. The atmosphere doesn't stop. Everything on the surface keeps moving. And in that first second, the world turns into a weapon. To understand why, we need to remember one simple fact. The Earth is not standing still. It is spinning. Every 24 hours, our planet completes one full rotation. At the equator, the surface of Earth moves at around 1,670 kilometers per hour. That is faster than the speed of sound, but you never feel it. Because you, the ground, the buildings, the air, and the oceans are all moving together. It is like sitting inside a smooth airplane. If the plane moves at a constant speed, you can still drink water, walk around, and feel completely normal. But if that plane suddenly stops, everything inside keeps flying forward. Now imagine that airplane is the entire planet. That is exactly what happens when Earth suddenly stops spinning. The ground stops, but momentum doesn't disappear. If you're standing near the equator, your body keeps moving east at more than 1,600 kilometers per hour. You wouldn't simply fall over, you would be thrown sideways at an unimaginable speed, faster than a bullet train, faster than a commercial airplane during takeoff. Buildings wouldn't simply collapse, they would be ripped apart sideways. Cars would become deadly projectiles. Trains would leave their tracks. Bridges would tear apart. Every loose object would become a deadly weapon. Glass, metal, trees, even people. For most of humanity, the first second would also be the last. But the destruction doesn't end there. The ground has stopped, but the atmosphere hasn't. Trillions of tons of air keep racing eastward at incredible speed. Within seconds, the entire planet is hit by winds faster than the speed of sound. These wouldn't be hurricanes. They would be global shock waves capable of flattening almost everything in their path. And then the oceans begin to move. Earth may have stopped, but billions of tons of water are still carrying their momentum. The seas surge across the continents with unimaginable force. These aren't ordinary tsunamis. They're entire oceans refusing to stop. Coastlines disappear. Cities are swallowed. Within minutes, the map of the world begins to change. But not every place on Earth would experience the same destruction. The closer you are to the poles, the slower the Earth's surface moves. At the North and South Pole, that sideways speed is almost zero. So does that mean people at the poles would survive? Not quite. Because the atmosphere is still coming, and it won't show any mercy. But even if the winds eventually died down, Earth would never look the same again. The planet itself would begin to change. Right now, Earth isn't a perfect sphere. It's slightly wider around the equator because of its rotation. But once that rotation is gone, gravity takes over, and slowly, the oceans begin a journey toward the poles. Over thousands of years, the oceans would continue moving north and south. Entire coastlines would disappear. New land would rise where oceans once existed. The poles would become massive oceans. The equator would become much drier than it is today. The map of Earth would become almost unrecognizable. But changing oceans wouldn't be humanity's biggest problem. Time itself would feel completely different. A day would no longer last 24 hours. Earth would still orbit the sun, but without its daily rotation, one sunrise could take months to become a sunset. Half the planet would bake under relentless sunlight, while the other half would endure months of freezing darkness. So, could anyone survive? Surprisingly, yes. But only in a few places. Near the equator, the heat would become unbearable. Far into the dark side, the cold would be just as deadly. The best chance for survival would exist somewhere in between, where endless daylight slowly fades into endless night. Fortunately, this will never happen. Stopping Earth's rotation instantly would require an impossible amount of energy. But this thought experiment reveals something extraordinary. Right now, you're standing on a planet spinning at over 1,600 kilometers per hour. You're flying through space at incredible speed. Yet everything feels perfectly still. Maybe that's the most amazing thing about Earth. Not what would happen if it stopped spinning, but the fact that it never does.